Good evening. This is Rudy Giuliani, and we are the Rudy Giuliani Show on Lindell TV. And today we are in New York City. In fact, we're at the Trump Hotel in New York City and doing our show from here tonight because we have a very big political event tomorrow, which we'll tell you about in a little while. And you see, of course, behind me, what is pretty much a lot of the focus of the world attention starting to turn now toward who will replace Pope Francis, because I think there's an understanding that this is a religious position, and that's the way the person who holds it treats it, and that's the way all good, decent popes treat it. But the reality is that given the enormous influence of this position, it has a big impact on the world. There are 1.6 billion Catholics, if I'm correct, in the world, which is the largest. It's the largest by plurality of religion, meaning singular denomination. If you put all Christians together and all Muslims together, I'm not sure who's one or two. But you have so many different sects of Christians, right? After Catholic, the rest is small in comparison. I mean, the Orthodox are pretty large. And then after that, the Western European Protestant churches are pretty much fractured, and the evangelical movement is two or three different movements. So this is the singular largest church, and of course a position that's one of the probably the most ancient in the world in terms of longevity, which has had quite a history of greatness and of evil, and but of course the whole purpose of it is the salvation of the human being and the exaltation of God and God's and those made in God's image and likeness, us human beings. So almost no one can dispute its purpose, maybe its beliefs. So and over the course of history, it's had a tremendous impact on human history. So the next choice, the next pope, will make a difference, as this one did. And of course, we know in recent times the tremendous difference made by Pope John Paul II, from religion to communism, freedom, human decency. So, as you know, just so that we review it properly and we get ourselves oriented correctly. The Pope, very prophetically, I do think I've been trying to check into outside meetings. I do believe his last outside meeting was with Vice President Vance a day before he died. Vice President Vance and Vice President Vance's children. It really has to be very significant for a couple of reasons. First of all, Vice President Vance is a newly converted Catholic, I believe 2019. And as you know, as you should know, in most cases, people who are converts to a cause or a religion are usually stronger in their beliefs than anyone, because they made a recent adult choice to select that religion. So they very definitely know why they're there, as opposed to, let's say, someone like me who was born a Catholic. And of course, I could have been something else. But given the dynamics of my family, there wasn't really much of a chance that I was. Now, in my particular case, I spent a little while studying for the priesthood, and I grew up in the church. It was very, very much a part of my life until I graduated from college. In fact, the first time I started a class without saying a prayer was at NYU Law School. The class began, and I'm starting to think I felt funny, like this class didn't really begin. And up until the last day of college, you began by saying a prayer at every class. Of course, we also used to do the Pledge of Allegiance every morning too. But in the case of a Catholic school, we said a little prayer before every class, including, the main room class, and then the math class, or go on to college, the calculus class, or whatever. But so many people inherit their religion. It's not just the Catholic religion, the Jewish religion. You have many, many devout practicing Jews. You have others that believe in the Jewish religion but don't practice it. And you have some that are indifferent to the religion, although very strongly supportive of Zionism or Israel. Then you have some that aren't supportive of Zionism. So religions are very, very, have even fairly orthodox religions like Catholicism, and are very varied in their practice. And the Pope represented a certain version of it, which, for those who agreed with it, he was a great Pope. And for those who weren't, he was a very, very confusing Pope. But his last day, he also, that would be on Easter Sunday, he took the advice of his, I guess it's his nurse, doctor, nurse, maybe a caregiver, Dr. Andrea Arcangeli. And he went on a little ride around St. Peter's Square. They reportedly, at the time that he went, there were 50,000 people out there. So, in a way, one wonders, was it prophetic that he did that he had a chance to go and bless the people that he was so close to. Whether you agree or disagree with his political philosophy, one would have to admire his Christ-like love of people, which was infectious. You could, if you are a people person yourself, you could see when he embraced children or saw people that were ill, or there was a warmth and a love for them, irrespective of who they were. And he did get a chance to display that one last time before he died at 7:35 yesterday morning. And that was declared by Kevin Cardinal Farrell, who is the Vatican Camerlengo, the acting sovereign, the acting pope, with an admonition to do as little as possible. I'm serious. I mean, that's for all of them, not just him. But try to do as little as possible during this period of time. But of course, he is quite busy. He's the one that had to declare that he was dead. He had to go through the ceremonies of 3 doctors affirming that. He then had to clean out the papal rooms, the beautiful rooms that he has, where he walks out and blesses people. And then the much simpler room, which I think was just a single room, in the building that's been built for all of the cardinals, St. Martha's residence, which is not a long distance from the papal apartment, but at his age, it would require a ride, and at the age of a lot of the cardinals, and of course the Camerlengo to it as he had returned to the Lord, which is a beautiful way of describing the death of a man who devoted his life to our Lord Jesus Christ. He was both greatly praised and greatly criticized for his greater acceptance of the LGBTQ community within the church. He added, by adding the phrase, "Who am I to judge?" he lifted a lot of the I don't know that it really added anything to the religious beliefs or the moral beliefs, but it added an awful lot to the understanding that that people should have of the way other people should live. He then he went on to try to soften the divide by saying that homosexuality is not a crime. But then he had to qualify it by saying it is a sin. But of course, one has to understand when a Christian, particularly a very knowledgeable Christian theologian, says that you're committing a sin, he's saying you're human. I mean, all the preaching of Jesus Christ is all about reaching out to the sinner and how we're all sinners. And the only ones of us that are not sinners are phony hypocrites. Right? And I guess the less discussion of it, the better, was the thought. But maybe the explanation should be the following. So if you're an unmarried man or woman, having sex, heterosexual or homosexual, is a sin. Now, you may regard that as much too rigid and much too old-fashioned and much to this, much to that. But what I just said to you is not at all controversial. I mean, that's been true. Sex outside of the sacred bonds of matrimony is a mortal sin. So if a couple is dating, they have to wait until they're married, heterosexual or homosexual. Now, here's the difference. He also allowed the blessing of the homosexual union. And many conservatives very much oppose that, as maybe they saw it as a way of encouraging people to be homosexual, or maybe not. I tend to believe that it's something that you are or you aren't. Have a very different view of transgender, where I think there's a tremendous amount of brainwashing and persuasion that goes into that. And statistically, it's really very demonstrable. Some very large percentage of people, young people who have considered changing their sex, will tell you later in life that it was a momentary or temporary thing, and they changed their mind, and thank goodness they didn't. And increasing numbers are coming forward now who were brainwashed or pushed into changing their sex, who now regret it. Very different thing between that and whether you have heterosexual, homosexual sex. So the Pope had to qualify it by saying it was a sin. In some ways, he antagonized everyone by doing that. He antagonized the very strict conservatives by giving some form of approval to homosexuality, and he antagonized the community by suggesting that what they were doing was very evil. But it actually is no more evil than a man and a woman having sex if they're not married. So the moral teachings of the church equated to the modern world of hedonism are very, very difficult for people who have lost every single bit of moral focus to understand what might be regarded as an extremely morally rigid set of rules. And the Pope was in the middle of that, and therefore he was often seen by the conservatives as much more progressive than he actually was. And then at times he would disappoint the progressives because he would show tolerance and understanding and love for them, but not necessarily acceptance of what they were doing. And he was a very strong opponent of transgenderism and the movement toward transgenderism. He was very big supporter of open borders, very big supporter of immigration. I am not really sure that Pope Francis understood the dimensions of immigration today, as opposed to what he would be familiar with when he was living more in the world, the immigration of that I was familiar with when I ran it for the Reagan administration, the immigration of the 70s and 80s and 90s, where the number of illegals, strictly illegals, who came here for salutary purpose, work, was a much larger percentage of the people coming in, and the people who came here for 10 now major crimes that they commit, some of which lead the world in crimes like human trafficking and prostitution and child abuse and the distribution of fentanyl and the distribution of other forms of drugs, the establishment of massive organized crime groups throughout the United States, purposes of terrorism and purposes of spying, and there is a very, very big difference between who you're going to draw when you have some form of security at the border, not even the perfect security we have now, but some form of security, and none at all. None at all invites all the dregs of the world to come in, and it also invites every criminal group that takes advantage of being able to come into the United States the opportunity to go wild, which is what's happened. Before I pronounced the Pope being ignorant on the subject of immigration or wrong on the subject of immigration, I just wonder how much he understood of it, understood of the reality of it. He was also a supporter of climate change. And again, I wonder how much of that he understood. And on that, I wondered why he was getting himself involved in that. So it was a very interesting papacy. It also did, in my view, although there are people who dispute this, a very good job of putting an end to the question of whether priests who were pedophiles would be treated leniently and be tolerated in some form or another out of fear of hurting the reputation of the church. He's quite open about it, and I thought put it behind the church. The financial repercussions of it are still being felt, and maybe even some of the reputational. But I think he put it behind in the way he handled it, and he also, I think, did as good a job as you can do at straightening out the Vatican finances, which were both chaotic and criminal at different times. So it's a complex man. If you're a progressive, it would be a man of extraordinary leadership. If you're a conservative, it would be more of a mixed record. And if you're also a more moderate in the middle, you might say there was a disconnect between the number of people over the last 2 or 3 years, particularly since the pandemic, drawn to the church in much larger numbers than over the last 20 or 30 years. And it's a worldwide phenomenon led by Africa and Asia, but also experienced in North and South America. But the people who are led there for structure, the people who are led there because we're in a world of relativism when nothing is wrong or right, or everything is okay. And people thirst for, desire tremendously some kind of structure, some kind of moral framework. I also think this, of course, now is a matter of my belief rather than necessarily a social observation, although I think it is a social observation. You can be an atheist all you want or an agnostic, but from the very beginning, human beings are seeking God. It's almost a history of the human brain from the time it was established. It's seeking an explanation that it can't obtain. What's it all about? Where did it all come from? Where did it all start? And it's very difficult for the human beings, particularly if they're arrogant and overly impressed with their own intellect, and to accept the fact that there are vast parts of the there are vast parts of this universe we do not understand how it came about, what it's there for. But I mean, it did lead to, as we say, a certain amount of controversy about his papacy, which will now get reflected in what happens in the next choice of Pope, which I think is going to be almost more important than ever, particularly for Europe, the traditional home, really, of not the home of Christianity, but the home of the spread of Christianity, has become one of the more non-Christian parts of the world and one of the more God-hating parts of the world. When you look at what's been happening in countries that were traditionally very religious, like Spain and France and England, although they are split between the Church of England and the Roman Catholics. Always more Roman Catholics in the UK than you realized. There now are more practicing Roman Catholics than there are members of the Church of England, largely because the people who do want to go to church want a religion that cannot seem to define the difference between right and wrong. So we'll be back. We'll be back in a moment, and we'll take a look at what lies ahead and the confusing situation with tariffs that may be starting to get much more understandable. At least the market is reflecting that.
If you want to feel and look your best, you need to check out Pure Health Research. They have 45 premium health supplements that are designed to help you with everyday health goals. Whether it's boosting your energy or trimming belly fat, supporting healthy blood sugar, pumping your testosterone up, or even reducing swelling in your legs, Pure Health Research Supplement Store has you covered. Each formula is crafted with natural, non-GMO ingredients, backed by clinical research and manufactured right here in the USA. And here's the best part. Pure Health Research is offering you an exclusive 35% discount. Just go to purehealthresearch.com and use promo code Lindell at checkout. With their 365-day money-back guarantee, there's nothing to lose. So head over to purehealthresearch.com now, explore their 45 amazing supplements, and save 35% before this deal ends with promo code Lindell. Have you ever wondered what happened to the legendary Chuck Norris? Well, I recently saw a video he made and I was shocked. The guy's amazing and he's staying active well into his 80s. What's even more shocking is he's stronger, can work out longer, and even has plenty of energy left over for his grandkids. He did this by just making one change. He says he still feels like he's in his 50s. His wife even started doing this one thing too, and she's never felt better. She says she feels 10 years younger, her body looks leaner, and she has energy all day. Chuck made a very special video that explains everything. Make sure you watch it by going to chuckdefense.com/Lindell. It will change the way you think about your health. Once again, that's chuckdefense.com/Lindell. You won't believe how simple it is.
Well, right now, what you're looking at is the view out of our studio room at the Trump International Hotel on the west side of Manhattan. You're looking up Broadway, going up on this is the west side of Manhattan. It's right in front of Columbus Circle. It's the place where the Thanksgiving Day parade turns and heads towards Macy. But also, if you look at the shot and you look way in the back and you see the white building, it's rather vague in the background. That's Lincoln Center for the Performing Arts. And right below here and across the street is the Time Warner building, which I put out for bid and selected the bidder and then required that they put a Performing Arts Center there. It actually is a great center for the performance of jazz, the Rose Hall, so that we could begin Lincoln Center 6 blocks earlier. And then as you walk up there, there are various offices for different orchestras and music and singers and ballet. And then at Lincoln Center, there's, of course, the Metropolitan Opera, the Avery Fisher Hall, where the New York Philharmonic will perform. There's the ballet, the New York City Ballet. There's any number of visiting operas and orchestras that perform there, and of course the Juilliard School of Music. It's the cultural center certainly of New York, if not of America. And the Metropolitan Opera House is one of the 2 or 3 most prominent opera houses to perform in. You're not really a great opera singer until you perform at the Metropolitan Opera, and there's a reason for it. It's one of the biggest. It's one of the biggest auditoriums to fill with your voice. No electronic enhancement at the Metropolitan Opera House, God forbid. Oh, electronic surveillance, it would be like, Pete Rose or something. Electronic amplification, rather. Avery Fisher Hall, on the other hand, which contains the New York Philharmonic, has always been plagued by what was considered inadequate acoustics. Not for me. I must say, I've gone there many, many times for the New York Philharmonic and classical music, and I love it. I think it's fabulous. And I don't know what the acoustical problem is, but maybe I'm just not that sensitive to the issue. So now we have with us Allison, and she's at the White House today. Allison?
Hello, Mr. Mayor. How are you doing?
Good.
I'm great. Thank you.
So here I am in the capital of the world, New York, and you're in the capital of the United States, Washington, D.C.
That's right.
What's going on?
Yes, I love your live view from your window. It's been a pretty busy day. It's beautiful. I'm a little envious, I must say. I love New York. I want to go back soon. But we are in Washington, D.C. at the White House for the time being, and it's been a wonderful day here. Very busy day at the White House. The day sort of kicked off with a very impromptu press gaggle with President Trump. He just happened to come out onto the White House lawn and met with the press for a bit. This actually started because he was taking a look at the front lawn here right behind me, because there is a massive 100-foot American flag being put up in the front yard, as well as a second one in the back. So those 2 flags will be up very soon. So the president was kind of scoping out the landscape to see where he's going to put them. So that was fun. And then after that, he took questions from the press. It was very funny because there's videos all over the internet today of the fake news just running to go talk to the president. Like I said, it was sort of an impromptu stop that he met with the press and took some questions. So check out those videos if you have time on X. It's very funny to see the fake news.
Yeah, I'd love to see them.
But he basically, the highlight of the gaggle was sort of the main focus there was primarily around tariffs and the latest developments on trade. President Trump is saying, of course, we're no longer going to be the country that's getting ripped off by every other country. We're going to take the power back into our own hands. We've seen him clearly working on this since he announced the big tariff reveal on Liberation Day. He also says that many countries are coming to him to get a deal worked out, China included. He says they are actively talking with China and working towards a fair deal. So it looks like we are inching closer to that. He reassured us of that this morning. So it sounds like things are very positive, moving in an upward trajectory there. And this truly just goes to show the art of the deal. Everyone thought that this was going to take a long time. It was going to be this long, drawn out process. And I would say that this is actually, working out to develop rather quickly. And we know President Trump is a great businessman. He had a solid plan here all along, and it seems like things are working out well, according to him. So that's good news as far as the tariffs are concerned. We also heard from Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt. She did a quick gaggle out on the front lawn, as well as Tom Homan. So we had multiple people within the cabinet make a stop and talk to the press. Tom Homan really focused on immigration, of course, seeing as the borders are. And I love the point that he made. He reminded us all that, there is this massive influx of upwards of 20 million illegals who were let in under the Biden regime. They are here and they are wreaking havoc. They are, causing trouble, terrorizing lives, killing innocent Americans, and they've got to be stopped. This was all done in an effort, of course, to rig the elections. That was the ultimate purpose, and we can never forget that they were brought in here intentionally to interfere with our elections and ultimately perpetuate this vicious cycle of allowing these criminal Democrats to stay in power. So now that we have President Trump in office, we know he is working tirelessly to put an end to this and hopefully never allow such a thing to happen again, courtesy of all of the deportations that are currently happening and the border crossings being down over 99% this year.
Yeah, and there was a very big arrest yesterday here in New York. 27 trans-Nicaragua and anti-trans-Nicaragua gangs that fight with each other and cooperate with each other, and massive seizures of drugs and money done by a combination of Tom Homan and the district attorney in New York and the mayor. Absent was Soros's district attorney, who luckily these will be federal cases, and he won't be allowed to set them all free, so they can do it all over again, which is what happens to us here in my former city and the one I love so much. But thank you very much for that report. It was really excellent. It was once again another very, very big day at the White House. And great job, Allison. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. Take care.
Well, again, it's just active day after day, and the market today looked like it really was going to. Well, it's up ultimately up about 500 points. It's up. It closes 400 points higher, but it had been up more than double that. So, whereas the Nasdaq stayed pretty steady, and the Nasdaq had a jump. Had a jump today of 2.5%, which is but as the articles point out, the mega rally that appeared to be happening didn't happen. But that's 2 days in a row now of up 1,000 points, up 1,400 points. There seems to be an acceptance by the market that the trade deals that the administration say are lined up and being worked out, but for the details, that they're going to start falling in line, and that there'll be some kind of an accommodation with China. The second one, I don't have a feel for as to exactly how that'll work out. So I don't know that I would underscore that as a definite. But the fact that there are going to be multiple double-digit trade deals, that'll be enormously beneficial to us. I have no doubt of, and we're sort of down to the last points that have to be made there. So the Pope is now lying in state. He was taken from from his. He was actually at a sort of a hospice. He was taken there. He was taken to his apartment where he was, where people came to visit and see him. Now he's been brought over to St. Peter's, and if we could switch to the photo, well, I guess we can't. Ted has somehow disappeared, but the reality is the Pope is now lying in state. He will be lying in state until Saturday, when a funeral mass will be conducted. If I understand it correctly, it can be conducted outdoors. There's the Pope lying in state. The people can go and visit. My understanding again is that it might be open all night, so that people will be able to go all throughout the night and pay their respects and pray to a man who already there's discussion that he'll be a Saint Francis. Now that's a long and arduous task that almost always requires 5 years. In the case of John Paul II, and in the case of John the 23rd, the last two popes who became saints, it took a generation for John the 23rd to be a saint, and it took 8 or 9 years for John Paul II to become a saint. There is talk of Pope Francis becoming a saint sooner than that, but 5 years would be the usual time. The funeral now is set for Saturday. Now remember what that means for you, me. 3 a.m. in the morning. That's when the preliminary, I guess, the preliminary services will begin. At 10, the mass will begin. So that would be 4 o'clock in the morning. It's going to be held, it says here, in St. Peter's Square, outside of the 500-year-old basilica. Cardinal Giovanni Battista Re, who is 91 years old, and he's the dean of the College of Cardinals, which really means he's the oldest member of the College of Cardinals. He is going to preside over the service. And when it's over, they're going to take the Pope. They're literally going to take him across. If we want to, I'll show you if you want to see it, I'll show you what the route will be. You see it there on the screen. You see Vatican City. You see St. Peter's Basilica, where that's lined up. So it's going to be outside of St. Peter's Basilica in the large square surrounded by the Bernini columns, where the faithful will be. The altar will be up near the steps. It'll be presided over by the 91-year-old cardinal, to be distinguished from Cardinal Farrell, who is the Camerlengo or the acting pope now. But Cardinal Re is the dean of the College of Cardinal and will preside over the Mass. When the Mass is concluded, they're going to have a procession, I assume by car, because it's a bit of a walk of about 2.5 miles across the Tiber River, which separates the Vatican from the rest of Rome, and over to the Church of Saint Mary Maggiore, which is Santa Maria Maggiore. Maria Maggiore is Saint Mary Major. It's one of the prime churches in Rome. There are certain churches that are considered seats, and it's one of the seats. And it was throughout his life in Rome, it was the Pope's favorite church, which he visited over 100 times, including every time he left and every time he returned. And he is elected, unlike most other popes, to be buried there in a plain wooden coffin, which, if you looked at that photo that we showed you, or depiction of him lying in state, you will see it was a plain wooden coffin. The discussion going on about the successor to Pope Francis, a lot of the attention focused on this Cardinal Parolin. He's an Italian. He's also the highest ranking person in the Vatican. He's the Secretary of State. And it's the position that Pope Pius XII held before he became Pope. It is, it's always a position where the person in that position is considered for Pope seems to me almost always passed up because it's a position in which you make a lot of friends and a lot of enemies. You're going to make a lot of decisions and people are going to disagree with some of them. For example, the cardinal who is brilliant, speaks many languages, as many of the popes have done, right? Speaks many languages, is not necessarily a theologian the way Benedict was, or writer like Pope John Paul II, but he's a very accomplished diplomat, having negotiated the release of hostages, having helped assist in achieving peace in different parts of the world, but also having made some controversial decisions, like the more conservative cardinals and church members would say he has allowed China to interfere too much in the appointment of bishops and given them too much of a role in deciding, or giving them a role at all in deciding who a bishop is going to be, and has led to disputes about the legitimacy of bishops in China. He was also played a big role in putting the United States and Cuba back together again, which again is a very difficult signal for not just American conservatives, but the traditional, extremely anti-communist position of the Roman Catholic Church. You know, people forget, but the very, very famous apparition of the Blessed Mother in Fatima, Portugal, was, for many reasons, to bring peace to the world, but ended with a very, very strong warning of the designs of communism, particularly the Soviet Union, on human freedom, on human dignity, and on religion. And the church has always, including in Italy, has always been a tremendous enemy of the Communist Party, but that sort of set it in stone. And at the end of every Latin Mass, there was a prayer to the Blessed Mother to deliver us from communism. Of course, that has become a controversial issue also, and Cardinal Parolin is on the progressive side of that, which is almost at the point of certainly wanting to reduce it, if not eliminate it. And it's become, strangely, because I mean, I grew up in the Latin Mass. I was an altar boy with the Latin Mass. I still remember many of the responses of the Latin Mass, and I love it. I love the Mass. I will sometimes listen to it just to relax. I listen to Latin just to relax. I love the language. And then when the Mass was changed into the vernacular after the Second Vatican Council, it wasn't until recently that there was a hostility to the Latin Mass. Every parish, or every diocese had a couple of churches that would say it. I used to know, I still know where they are around New York, and to some extent I found out in Washington. I know in Florida where they are. But it's only recently that they've become controversial. And I don't exactly know why. Why the church wouldn't want to have an appropriate place for the preservation, recognition, and ability of people to study in real time its history. I don't know. I don't understand the controversy over the Latin Mass, and maybe in the course of covering this, we'll have theologians on who can explain it to me, because it would seem to me this should be a non-controversial subject. The main Mass is in the vernacular, but if you want to occasionally have people enjoy the early liturgy, it was a longer Mass. It was filled with more prayers. It had more ceremony and a few more bells and whistles and music. And gee, if it weren't for that Latin Mass, I don't know what Mozart would have done with a lot of his great compositions. Even Bach, who was a Lutheran, wrote a Catholic Mass because they're so beautiful. Beyond the issue of the Pope, yesterday into today was consumed with a great deal of discussion and also an understanding of the implications of the argument before the Supreme Court yesterday over Montgomery County School Board, which just briefly, what they did was they have a group of books that they made available somewhere like right after the pandemic, or maybe right before. And originally, these books, of which there are, I'll give you some examples of the books. If you want to switch, Ted, Born Ready, The True Story of a Boy Named Penelope. So that book was available to pretty much any student and used in certain curriculum in the school. And when this originally was introduced, parents were allowed to opt their child out. Here's another one. This is another book. This is instruction to the little boy or little girl. However you feel is fine. However you feel is fine, baby. It's what on the inside that matters most. If you feel like a boy, that's okay. No, Mama, I don't feel like a boy. I am a boy. That's a strange conversation, questioning the kid. The kid seems pretty confident he's a boy, and his mother or caregiver is putting some doubt in his mind. It's okay if you don't feel like a boy, but Mom, I feel like a boy. You leave me alone. I mean, this is really weird.
That's how retarded these people have become.
This is really weird. Now, here's just one of their stupid. I mean, because they love having these gay queens come in and give lectures in school. Exactly why they want gay queens to give lectures is very, very hard for me to understand, but they do. And there are about 12 or 15 of these books. All of a sudden, by March of 2023, they reversed course, and they didn't allow parents to opt out for religious concerns. And the parents sued, and of course, they went before the courts in Maryland, which are like the courts in D.C., not courts anymore, but appendages of the left wing of the Democratic Party, and they lost in the district court, and they lost in the Fourth Circuit. They backed the school board in affirming that the children are the property of the school board and not of the parents. The Supreme Court heard argument yesterday, and unless they're teasing, they're going to reverse it. And they're going to return to the 3,000-year-old proposition that the primary caregivers for children and determinants of very, very delicate questions of morality and sexuality and guidance for that will be with parents. And things will not be done against the objection of parents. That seemed to be the view of Judge Kavanaugh and of the conservative judges, possibly Judge Kagan, who did say that she isn't surprised that people, even for non-religious reasons, would have trouble with this literature for children. And Justice Amy Coney Barrett, who's the one that most often retreats from the conservative position, was pretty darn clear. I don't know. Do we have the quote for it, or do you want me to read it?
If you don't, if we have a clip, if you have that clip, otherwise maybe just read it for now.
If we have any of the clips on yesterday's argument, people.
Let's play. If we have a picture of Amy Coney, put up the picture of Amy.
I don't have one.
I know. They do.
Well, in any event, I'll read it. Justice Barrett, after she suggested they could limit their decision in reversing by saying, we don't have to decide whether you get the opt-out. We just have to decide if the Fourth Circuit accurately defined what a burden is. I don't understand exactly why you wouldn't go ahead and decide the opt-out. I know the court tries to give the narrowest decision possible. And if it's a very difficult question, the court is either tied or needs more time. But here, why you keep this open? And if you have a decision, decide it. It's so close. But in any event, she did then go on to say that the LGBTQ plus laced classroom instructions aren't merely trying to expose students to different ideas, but are about trying to impress upon students that this is the right view of the world and how you should think about these things. So what she's saying in more graceful language, it's really, as I have maintained for many, many years, it really is part of the Marxist indoctrination of the students. This is a brainwashing session with all these pictures around and ideas that, like the mother asking the boy who's quite confident that he is a boy, it's okay if he doesn't feel like a boy. There's enough confusion on things like this among normal kids. I mean, something like 60 to 70% of them have some confusion about this at some point in their life. And if they were to change their sex, they would probably end up committing suicide by the time they were 25, which is happening. Recognized in Europe, really amazing. Recognized in Europe, but not the United States. We become more ridiculously, I hate the word progressive, but I guess it conveys.
Yeah.
We've become more perversely Marxist and insane than Europe. In England, I think you can't have one of these operations, even if your parents agree, until you're over the age of 20, or just like you can't get a tattoo if you're 18 or younger. Your parents can say okay as much as they want. You can't get one.
Is progressive another one of those words for like George Orwell? Like,
yeah. Oh, gee, isn't that a great observation, Rob? Rob is absolutely right. Is progressive just another George Orwell counter speak, right? You know, like the great example in 1984 is the Department of War, right? The Defense Department, the Department of War is called the Department of Peace.
Peace now, yeah.
They're called the Department of Peace, and then they go around making war with the other totalitarian entities that they contend with.
That's what these dirty scoundrels do to you.
Well, that's what they do to me. If they do to the president, that's what they completely, Russian collusion is really Ukrainian collusion. Right? I mean, that's January 6th was worse than Pearl Harbor. Well, in any event, these books called Intersection Allies, What Pronouns Fit You, like lots of detailed instructions on the proper use of pronouns. Has nothing to do with grammar. It has to do with an extraordinarily debatable, if not scientifically resolved situation, that you're either a man or a woman. And that there's a pretty good, solid test for it, not controversial at all, called observation. It's something I think I could, I think you put me through it 100 times, I think I'd be right 100 times, so long as you're not hiding on me. There's another book called Born Ready, where a little boy gets confused about his sister transitioning into a boy. And then is resolved that it's okay, it's perfectly fine if his sister becomes a boy. Now, exactly. Yeah, there's another one. I don't have a picture of that. Uncle Bobby's wedding. Uncle Bobby is either the white guy or the black guy, but it's two guys getting married. Then something called Pride Puppy. Born Ready, the story of a boy named Penelope. Well, you saw that one. So it sounds like there was an article done today by one of the people involved in the case, Megan Palin, whose special needs child was exposed to this without her ability and her husband's ability to opt out and get him out of it, and it created tremendous problems. And Megan wrote an op-ed piece. Instead of teaching universal lessons about kindness and respect, these books push polarizing views on gender and sexuality. while placing an unusual emphasis on children's romantic emotions at a very early age. To be presenting those ideas to kids, especially those with special needs, I can't imagine what confusion it causes. But the school sent out a notice saying we would no longer have the option to opt out. It is the school announcing the great aim of Karl Marx and Frederick Engels and Joseph Stalin and Adolf Hitler to get control of the child and away from the parent at the earliest possible moment, which is disgraceful. It also is disgraceful that, and I hope it isn't the case, that that Musk has to leave his job because of these terrorist acts that are taking place. In Minneapolis, Minnesota, the guy who smashed up a Tesla dealership and Teslas, the guy who works for Tampon Tim's government. And you know, Tampon Tim had made very, very inflammatory remarks about Musk, and Tampon Tim, who seems to be an operative of Red China. The district attorney, Mary Moriarty, who is a corrupt creature of George Soros, put there by George Soros millions, she dropped the case. Like, it's okay to scratch up, mess up, blow up, or a Tesla dealership. And the case now has been turned over to Keith Ellison, who's also a recipient of huge Soros funding. Similarly, Dylan Bryan Adams was out walking his dog, and Tuesday a Tesla shop in Manhattan was sprayed with F. Elon. Property damage amounted to $20,000, and this is the case that she let him out on. And there was a similar one in Manhattan. So we're going to keep on top of this, and we're going to move over to X now. Talk a little about a sort of an evaluation of all these controversies they seem to have the president in, although he seems to be prevailing in all of them. But we'll sum them up a bit. So let's pray for the people of Ukraine and of Israel and of Iran. Let's pray for the people of America, what they're putting us through. Oh, thank God we have Trump. And once again, let's pray to the Pope. We don't have to pray for him. I think we should pray to him. God bless America.